Hi, welcome. Thank you so much today for joining us at this WeSys co-branded webinar event with Meta. We're super excited to be introducing Sarah and Oksana as they discuss the topic IT Factor, what you need besides technical skills to succeed. My name is Lynn Dome, and I'm Women in Cybersecurity Executive Director. We often go by our acronym WICYS, and we pronounce it We Sis, like We Sisters, because that's exactly what we are. We are a cyber sisterhood. And we're a 501c3 member-based nonprofit. We have over 5,150 members and have representation in over 70 countries. We have 43 professional affiliates, which are mini WeSys organizations, and those are in Africa, Australia, Canada, France, India, Pakistan, the UK, and all throughout the United States. And in addition to that, we have over 150 student chapters in Canada, Costa Rica, India, Nigeria, the US, as well. So our mission is to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity, and we do so by creating opportunities. Since we're a member-based organization, we have an online member forum where all our members network and connect. Within the forum, we have special interest groups such as Latinas in cybersecurity, military spouses in cybersecurity, cybersecurity law, data privacy, you name it, there's a conversation in there for you. And if not, you just go ahead and launch your own special interest group. We have many different skill development training programs put together by Bloomberg, Meta, Facebook, I'm sorry, not Facebook. Now it's Meta. So we have Google, AWS built out a roadmap, Target, SANS Institute, and so many more. So if you go to our website, wesys.org, you'll see under training programs all the different ways that you could advance your career thanks to the WeSys organization and the strategic partners. We have newsletters and webinars. We also have scholarship grants and awards, not only for our conference, which is coming up March 17th through the 19th in Cleveland, Ohio, but for other conferences as well. We have a Cyber Talent Emergency Fund where students within their last 4 semesters of graduating college could apply and receive up to $599 within 48 hours so that they could apply that to any financial emergency that they have, such as their car breaks down, or if it's a medical emergency, or if they can't afford their rent. We don't want anyone to be derailed from their cybersecurity studies. We have speaking and media opportunities so our members can be what others can see, and that's the cybersecurity professionals that they are. Our Job Board Plus Plus is a place where our 53 strategic partners can post their jobs, and also all our members could update their profiles and upload their resumes and get recruited from it. We have apprenticeship programs, internship programs, participate in market research, have leadership summits, leadership series, in-person and virtual career fairs, and many different assistance programs. In addition to all this, we also have our mentor-mentee program, which right now we have 775 mentees and 191 mentors in it. All that and so much more could be found on our website at wesys.org. And we owe this all as a special thanks to our strategic partners, AWS, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon Software Engineering Institute, Cisco, Meta, Google, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Optum, SentinelOne, AbbVie, JP Morgan Chase & Company, LinkedIn, Navy Federal Credit Union, Nike, Wayfair, Workday, Accenture, American Airlines, Artiqua, Champlain College, Dell Technologies, InvestNet, Flatiron, Fortinet, Haystack Solutions, Here Technologies, The Home Depot, IBM, Indiana University, MITRE, Motorola Solutions, Oak Ridge National Lab, Palo Alto Networks, PayPal, Salesforce, SANS Institute, Schlumberger, SmoothStack, Spirit Tip, Starbucks, Target, University of California, San Diego, and Verizon. And so I'd like to encourage everyone that here we have Sarah and Oksana presenting this fabulous Meta webinar, and we want to encourage you to ask questions. Both these ladies will be answering it live at the end of their sessions. So now is your time to just get all the information that you might need. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the WeSys newsletter or become a member. All that information is on our website, wesys.org. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on over to Sarah so she could take the webinar from here.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to you putting all of those names in a wrap at some point, because that was impressive how quickly you got those out. Well played. I am Sarah Davenport. I am a technical lead in the internal detection and response unit at Meta. I'm also a security engineer there. I help set up thought leadership, strategy, and guidance for how we catch bad guys and what security looks like across the metaverse. I can toss the mic to my partner, Exona, and let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. I'm really, really excited to be here alongside Sarah and talk about some of the skill sets that we really think are super important and feel passionate about. My name is Exona Ferrati. I have been at Meta for about 3 years, and I've had the chance to focus on a variety of things within this space, such as detection engineering, alert triage and automation, and incident response. Yeah, really excited to talk to you today.
All right. Again, Lisa, thank you so much for the opportunity for having us here. All of my lovely attendees, thank you for your time and attendance. Exona and I are honored and humbled by your presence here. We're excited to share some of our thoughts on the it factor, how you get ahead in your career. Why are we here? Let's talk about the core reasons. So we all have hard skills, technical skills. Those get you in the door. Those are your ability to demonstrate coding, incident response, incident management, vulnerability management. Oh, by the way, hug for my Log4j teams today, because we have been there for the last few weeks. I know you're all tired. We appreciate you being here for that. But hard skills don't necessarily get it done. You have to be able to sell yourself, your abilities, and explain why they integrate, why your idea is the best idea. That being said, competence does not always equal confidence for everyone. It took me a really long time to learn that being really good at something doesn't necessarily mean that, one, I enjoy it, or two, that I'm good at communicating it. It's a skill that you have to learn, and it's not unreachable. I think a lot of people tend to say, we hunt for unicorns, or we hire people that are unicorns. In our company, we have a very specific policy of not hiring unicorns. Why? They don't exist. All of these skills are teachable. We're here to give you a very tactical and operational approach that skills, things that you can say, do, etc., that help you when those soft skills seem too hard. And thirdly, to kind of distill this for you, I worked for the Navy for a really long time. And the Navy SEAL teams, I'm sure most people are familiar with that group, are an elite group of operators and warriors. The selection for that isn't just based off of skills alone. I learned this a long time ago when I started working for the Navy, and it just stuck with me the whole time. Simon Sinek, who's another wonderful tech guy who you guys have probably seen TED Talks from, often goes over the performance versus trust dichotomy. That is, when people apply to become a Navy SEAL, they're evaluated on two axes. One is performance, i.e. in our group, that would be tech skills. The other is trust, that would be soft skills. And obviously, everybody wants to hire someone that is high performance, high trust. People like them, they can get stuff done. That being said, that is a very rare skill set combined. And when you compare high performance with low trust, i.e. that person that gets everything done but doesn't necessarily integrate really well with the team, that is usually a toxic team member and someone that can't help other people grow. So the SEALs decided it would be better to hire people of moderate performance, even low performance, with high levels of trust over high performers with low levels of trust. This talk is intended to give you the bridge skills to cover that gap in order to ensure that your high performance translates into high trust. And we're going to do that a few different ways. Exona is going to walk you through some pretty concrete communication skills. Then I'm going to walk you through our trifecta of social, emotional, anthropological underpinnings of what that means in terms of confidence, vulnerability, and empathy. Then Exona will wrap it up by telling you how to utilize those skills to build trust and relationships. And hopefully we'll have some time at the end to take your questions. All right, Exona, off to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to start with is communication. And I think everyone knows how valuable of a skill it is, not only in your career, but in your everyday life, your personal relationships, things that you do, going to the grocery store, everything. You need to communicate to be able to, build those relationships, come to resolutions and different things. But time and time again, I have seen in my day-to-day what a difference it makes between two equally technically skilled coworkers, where one of them is very outspoken, communicative, is very articulate and able to showcase what they're working on or why they care about an issue, and those that do not. So There is many reasons why communication is so important, but I want to list a few of these here that I think are very applicable to a work environment in the tech industry. We work in a very collaborative environment, at least from my perspective and exposure in this field so far. You can't just be in a cubicle by yourself, head down, do your thing, code away. You have to talk to people, engage with team members, engage with cross-functional partners or partners, teams, leadership. And in order to do that, you have to talk to them, you have to communicate. So oftentimes you will have to get buy-in for your ideas. Maybe you want to start a project that you feel extremely passionate about, and you can't just go ahead and do it. You need some buy-in from leadership. So you need to be able to present that idea and to be able to sell it in a way. On top of that, it's just the work environment. I want to be somewhere where I can approach a coworker and ask them to help me out in an issue, or feel like I'm in an environment where it's inclusive and opinions are appreciated and you can express what you think, be it work related or not. And then the last one, which I think is so important, and have noticed it myself in different work environments, is when people have so much to offer. They are extremely talented, but oftentimes they are so worried and scared and insecure that they don't communicate at all what they want to work on or what they know. And therefore, to me, it's almost like that potential is wasted because no one gets to hear about it. And so with that, I want to talk about some of the hows and how to become a better communicator, how to kind of overcome these issues and difficulties that I have tried myself. Like being here today speaking to you is part of it. It's also outside of a comfort zone where you take the time to do something, that improves your growth. And so, for example, one of the things for a lot of non-native English speakers, myself included, oftentimes you feel that maybe people around you that are very comfortable and very communicative have years of experience. They talk so quickly in a team meeting that you're like feeling like you need to rush after them. And oftentimes maybe you have something to offer, but you're scared that you will take so long, or you need to translate in your head that you just, I'm just not going to do it. And so don't do that. Take your time to, articulate what you want to say and be able to present it. The more you do it, the easier it will get. Or if you're junior in the field, for example, I would tell my story. I used to, as a child, I was very outgoing and outspoken, was very confident. And I think that went on throughout high school and college, but then entering the industry and being a female in a very male-dominated field, oftentimes in the beginning of my career, I was very much like, oh, people probably have thought about this. I'm not going to speak up in this team meeting. There's 20 people here. Everyone's going to listen to me. I'm going to say something in a weird accent. And I have learned to navigate that. I have learned to just speak up and get more comfortable and utilize some of these tips in terms of what works for me and my skill sets. So the next point being is finding what works for you. So oftentimes, maybe if you are not comfortable and confident to verbally talk or communicate in a whatever setting it might be, maybe written works for you. So maybe you want to write your project idea or a blog post or something like that instead, that will help you grow and be successful in your career. So figure out what works for you and then do that instead until you get more and more comfortable with the experience that you will build to do even what's outside of your comfort zone. Oftentimes, it's just about doing it, to be honest. Like many times I have hesitated so much to say something that by the end of it, I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to say it. And honestly, it was not the end of it. Like maybe it was a good idea, maybe it was not a good idea, but at least I got comfortable expressing whatever I had to say. Another good thing to do is studying your environment and your team members. Oftentimes, you can relate in different cultures or backgrounds, or especially maybe when it's a very multicultural environment, you don't know much about each other, kind of breaking that barrier between each other in a social setting and getting to know them and asking questions, being curious, might help you be more comfortable to engage in a work setting as well. Just because you already in your mind know a little a little bit about them have been able to build some of the trust, and you're able to communicate whatever you feel passionate about. The last but not least is knowing when to listen versus when to speak. I think this is such an important skill and like a way to practice during communication, is because oftentimes people that are very comfortable with talking talk for so long that it takes away space and time for other people that are not as comfortable. So sometimes if you're on the opposite side where you talk a lot, and some of the feedback you have received is that sometimes, you know, people don't know when, you know, they doze off or not able to understand you very well because, you know, you've been going on and on. Learning when to listen and giving that space to people in your team or work or to show that you also care about what they have to say and what they have to offer to the table, and creating that safe space for everyone.
Thank you, Oksana. Oh, sorry.
No worries. Going well. Okay, perfect. So some of the things that we should be mindful of in terms of communicating and when it comes to verbal and nonverbal signals. Keeping it simple most of the time. Like I mentioned before, I think it happens sometimes that people that are very well spoken and like articulate, you know, maybe native speakers, or they're just, you know, have a very good vocabulary, sometimes say a lot of words and you're very confused and don't really understand. It's happened to me often when I've asked someone a yes or no question and they've spoken on, and by the end of it, I'm like, was it a yes or a no? I'm confused. So sometimes try to keep it simple. You know, it's helpful for people who, in terms of coming to a resolution, or like, especially when there is very strong opposite opinions on something and people go on and on. It's helpful to keep it short and simple and like understand viewpoints. Telling a story. Sometimes people will remember, are more likely to remember you when you tell a story associated with something. Just like, for example, me telling you about, you know, when I was a child, I was very confident and not spoken. Now you will remember that and probably associate it with whatever I was saying at the time. It's easier for you to recall the storyline than random facts. Trying to get intel on your audience, but not changing who you are to adapt to it. I think sometimes we find ourselves switching or changing to adapt and be in an environment which will make other people maybe more comfortable around you. And parts of it that is okay. Like sometimes you have to adjust. You can't be, you know, how you are at home and maybe in your PJs watching TV versus how you are at work. But sometimes it's easier for you to stay true and authentic to who you are, while also, you know, learning about others and using that in your communication skills. And then the last one, which Sarah taught our whole team, is not starting a sentence with "I'm sorry" unless you're apologizing, which I had never thought of before. And it's very true. Sometimes you hear, "I'm sorry, but I don't really agree with your opinion," and it's just useless. And most of the time, you never hear a man saying it. You only hear women saying it. So try to avoid that and just be like conscious of, you know, how you're communicating in a setting and how best and short and sweet to make your point across. And then nonverbal signals, like body language, just like I am talking to you today. If I'm very like slouchy and not really interested, you're probably not going to be interested. It's probably going to seem like a waste of time. So having like being present and using hand gestures or eye contact, smiling or smiling with your eyes, or showing attentiveness and that you're listening and that you're here for it. And even like something that I notice a lot is during VC life, now from working from home, people are looking at other monitors, doing different things. They're not really maybe listening to you in a meeting, and that's just not very welcoming. That doesn't make you feel like you can speak up. So try to be attentive and, you know, actually listen to what someone has to say within your team. With that, I'll take it back to Sarah.
Thank you, Oksana. I'm going to talk to you about the 3 kind of sociological and emotional underpinnings to achieve exactly what Oksana was just talking about. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about confidence. You see that awesome body language that she was just talking about. expressing externally our internal desires to be heard. Let's talk to you a little bit about confidence. Ooh, this is a mea culpa moment for me. I have been a mentor for a really long time, and I used to have this speech, and I love to give it, and I talked about how confidence is a superpower. And I went into all of these superhero analogies. I'm a Marvel fan, sometimes DC, sometimes Icon. But I got super nerdy about it in the weeds. I was very proud of this. And I kind of had an aha moment a while ago when I realized how messed up it was to talk about confidence as a superpower. Because that implies that you were either born with it and you were different from everybody else, or that you just like fell into this vat of confidence goo and it transformed you into a confident, competent performer. That is not true. Confidence is a muscle and you have to work it. And just like getting into shape or anything else, it feels very uncomfortable at first. And that can be scary. I talk with my 3-year-old and my 5-year-old a lot about, they're very into Paw Patrol right now and superhero movies also. And my daughter talked to me a little bit about bravery and how she wanted to be brave, but that she was worried that she wasn't brave because she was scared. And I pulled her aside and I was like, Coco, yes, you can't be brave if you are not scared. If we weren't scared, if this muscle flexing wasn't hard, everyone would do it and it wouldn't be a thing. And you wouldn't be here listening to me on a Thursday morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time is inappropriate for you. It would just be something that you did. But this is something that you have to identify the gaps in yourself, figure out the skills that you need to overcome them, and then work them constantly. The way that I coach people on how to be more confident is sounds simple, but it's hard in practice. So the first thing you have to do is just practice taking up space and being loud. I don't mean go have a sit-in somewhere and start yelling at poor wait staff at a restaurant. What I do mean is if it's uncomfortable for you normally talking in a meeting, especially around peers, or even to subordinates or to your managers and skip managers, just practice being uncomfortable with that. Use Exona's very practical points above, which is have a script, like have something to talk to. If you know that you have points, come in and bring them up. And like she said, something that I pound in all the time, don't say I'm sorry for it. If I showed up and I wasn't using Exona's tips and I wasn't using my physical space well, and I looked kind of sad and unconfident, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm here to talk to you about confidence, you probably wouldn't believe me that I was able to help you achieve being confident. So if you're uncomfortable, practice it. And if you're scared and not super duper uncomfortable and it's just foreign to you, start with the absurd. I grew up with a speech impediment. I had a stutter. It was hard for me to be able to talk to people. And the way that I learned to cope with it, and when I start getting jitters or start feeling uncomfortable with myself, with my space, which uncomfortable with space, by the way. Sorry if it looks like I'm on the surface of the sun right now. I live in dreary Minnesota, and all of a sudden it decided to be a glorious winter sunny day. So I'm a little sparkly. It's not a beta Instagram filter that we're testing here. Sorry. But if you are scared and you are trying to practice taking up space, being loud and being confident, sounds like a checklist. It's not. There's some 3 simple things that I do to help people learn that. The first is use your non-regional diction anchor voice. We all have seen the evening news at some point, although that's becoming OBE by the internet, thankfully, I think. But you'll notice that news anchors kind of have a funny accent and that they don't have an accent, or we think of them as not having a typical North American accent. So instead of talking like, hey, let's listen to the news, they'll be like, tonight on the evening news. Start narrating your day that way. It's very uncomfortable. It's very silly. If you have a partner, if you live with roommates, they'll look at you and ask if you are effectively taking your medication, etc. Explain to them that you are practicing taking up space, being loud. And the way to break through to doing that is by using a silly voice. News anchor voice does that. You can even do it in accents. There's a fun game. And of course, I can't remember the name of it right now, but you just practice saying absurd like sayings in different accents. It helps you getting used to talking publicly. And like Exona talked about, we don't always work with people that are from the same place as us. We have different accents, we have different talking speeds and cadences. And if you want to be a good coworker and a good sponsor of confidence and competence in others, be mindful of your audience in terms of metering yourself effectively so that you're understood. This is one that I struggle with. I tend to talk a lot and fast. But also think about the voice and dictionary and word choices that you're using. Use your news anchor voice to kind of sell that a little bit until you get comfortable with it. If you are of the sort, have a mantra. I am a distance runner. When I'm not here, I'm out running through the woods with my kids or racing against myself mostly because I'm usually the back of the pack, but I enjoy it a great deal. And when times get hard, I say to myself a line from a Robert Frost poem because it makes me feel like a baddie. So I'll be walking around like, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. And I'm sure the person that is running next to me, near around me, may also think that I should probably check in on my mental health a little bit, but it really keeps me going. Find the thing that motivates you. Find the thing that makes you okay being uncomfortable in your space and get comfortable in that discomfort, because soon it won't be uncomfortable anymore. Soon that confidence muscle will be a lot more toned and you'll be able to exercise it. Lastly, if you are of the musical theater ilk and or you just enjoy a good bop, I recommend having a theme song. Mine changes regularly. Right now, I'm usually in like the late 80s, early 90s post-punk kind of era, but that has a tendency to be a bit of a downer. So like I've been rocking some 80s thrash metal / power ballads, and it works for me. Find something that works for you. If you're having a down moment, go to the side, sing it to yourself, put it on the like whatever musical apparatus you have, and go for it. It can help you feel more confident in your environment. Next, let's talk about self-doubt, that evil little witch that sits in the background of our mind and tells us that we aren't good enough, we're not pretty enough, we can't get it done, we're not smart enough. So some coping strategies I have with self-doubt. You should name yours. Mine is named Estelle. She is evil. She lives in the back of my brain, and she constantly tells me things that are not useful to me. How I deal with Estelle is when I hear her saying things in my head like, Sarah, you shouldn't have said that, that was dumb, or, oh, you didn't patch that effectively, or holy, you could have written a better Yara signature. How can we do this better? I say what Estelle would say out loud. And I think if a person that was actually in my life would have said that to me, if I would still have a relationship with them afterwards, then I consider it. Maybe it's good advice. Maybe it's criticism that could help me grow. Most of the time, that self-doubt is complete BS, and you need to tell Estelle to take a walk. That being said, if you're feeling that level of self-doubt, if you think I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I can't do this, and it starts to get scary, put a pin in it. Embrace and acknowledge the fact that you're going through that type of emotional storm. And if it is warranted, i.e., if you are in the middle of the worst cyber offensive outbreak your organization has ever seen, and you have worked there for a week and a half and you don't have any administrative keys yet, it's probably good to have that shame and fear storm, and you need to tag somebody else that can help you. However, if you're a seasoned professional, even if you're not, if you've been there for a while, but you have all of the keys to get it done and you're confident and competent in your ability, and the person that needs to get that stuff done is you, and you're still experiencing that shame and fear storm, tag a friend. Reach out and say, hey, I'm going through it right now. I need a hype talk. I do this with a lot of my previous subordinates as well as my peers. We just have hype rep sessions. So get 5-10 minutes on somebody's calendar, someone you trust, someone you acknowledge, someone you respect, and say, I need you to talk me up for a minute. And when you get there, they will talk you up. Arizona talks me up sometimes when I'm ready to walk off a ledge. And let me tell you, it makes my day, and it makes me go out there and say, yes, I got this. We can do this. Next, if you don't feel confident or competent enough to shut off self-doubt for yourself, do it for the person that looks up to you. A lot of times I look around, and when I see myself beating myself up, I was shocked when one of my teammates came up to me after I mentioned someone in a meeting. I said, like, I shouldn't have done that. Next time we'll do X. And they said, oh, well, you know, that I kind of thought that's what we should have done. And I agreed with you, and I'm confused as to why you thought about yourself that way. And it's probably not healthy to think that. And I had to pause a little bit, and I realized that my behavior is reflected on my peers. My behavior is reflected on my subordinates and up as well. And if I want to create an accretive, healthy environment where people can bring good criticism for others' ideas, but also embrace and bootstrap each other up and be successful, then we need to be able to identify it and also tell us when it's not good, but reflect that behavior for others. You'll notice on the bullet here, it says, remember Shirley Chisholm. My favorite quote is from the first African-American Congresswoman, Shirley Chisholm, and she's famous for a number of things, but one of the like gems that she left us with is, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. And that just always stuck with me. If you have self-doubt that says, hey, you shouldn't be here, you're in the wrong place, say, you're right, that's cool though, because I brought my chair with me. So I'm going to set it down, I'm going to be here, I'm going to take up space, I'm going to be loud, and I'm going to answer this problem. That being said, to the last point on the last bullet where we talked about be as cheesy as you need to be, embrace your inner cheese and embrace your inner weird. My inner weird here, one of the other quotes that sticks with me is from Dune, which new movie, that was pretty decent, by the way. But one of the things that they repeat often in this is this quote, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. It will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over and through me. And when it is gone, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. When fear is gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Often, I say it even a lot more theatrically than I just did in front of you, but I got like a little self-doubty about it. But if there's something that empowers you and motivates you, embrace it fully. Like, embrace that weird. That is part about being genuine and being vulnerable and being yourself that other people identify with. If we all showed up exactly the same way to work, presented in the same manner, had the same pronouns, said the same things, had the same answers, not only would we be a lot worse off intellectually, it would be so boring. Please find your cheese and use it to make you useful in the workplace and reflect on others. All right. Now let's talk about a harder part than confidence. Confidence seems like a steep enough step to start with, right? That can be very difficult for all of us. The underpinning of confidence is vulnerability. Vulnerability is that comfort and discomfort that we're talking about. It's a way to break down walls, pull out a little bit of yourself and share it with someone else. The way I often illustrate this to my healthy group of nerds that I work with who love dragons is it's pulling up that dragon scale and letting someone see underneath. That can be very difficult because from a young age, especially people that associate or identify as female, are told that vulnerability is weakness and that we shouldn't show weakness. Don't cry. Like, don't show your true feelings in front of someone. If you have to cry, go outside. All of that. I don't agree with that. I think that vulnerability is strength. Kind of how we talked about you can't be brave unless you're scared. You can't be strong unless you're vulnerable. It's a binary that exists and you exist somewhere on it. But to truly be strong, you have to acknowledge your vulnerabilities and kind of treat it like a vulnerability management program. Decide if we're going to mitigate it, transfer it, or accept that risk. But you need to share it with others so that they know about it. I talked about embracing your weird, but part of this is also good communication with your peers in terms of putting context behind your effort. Part of being vulnerable is in a complex or dynamic situation, or even in a small one, like a board meeting where there's nobody there that looks like you. Like, everyone else's skin color is different. Everyone else's gender expression is different. It can be difficult to wear that mantle. And like I said in the last slide, be responsible to the other people that look like you and be like you. That is a lot of emotional burden that we're putting on you. If that is difficult, talk about that vulnerability with your hype rep. Talk about it with your peers. If you don't have a peer, phone a friend and find someone that can support you either in the WeSys community or externally on LinkedIn, one of Meta's many platforms, etc. But find someone that can help understand the effort that goes into what would be normal for somebody else. I had a group of subordinates a while back that were all male and male identifying, and a bunch of them came to me crying about various personal problems, which I was honored by because when I say came crying, I don't mean complaining. I mean like they were actually crying. I felt honored that they felt safe enough to be vulnerable with me. But at the same time, I had to like walk myself back from that because I thought, man, I would never cry in front of my boss. Like that would be so, like I would be branded that woman that cries at work and that's weak, etc. And I realized I was being kind of sexist and gender phobic about it in terms of only certain people can experience certain emotions. And I kind of, at the time, I justified it as, well, male privilege lets them do this and not be like viewed as weak for crying. It just makes them vulnerable. And I think we need to have an active part in shifting that context. It's okay to express yourself emotionally everywhere else. Also, the more human you become and the less robotic you are, the more everybody else identifies with you as also being human. So practice being okay with that vulnerability. That doesn't mean that, the first time you meet a coworker, you talk about childhood trauma and everything that is going on in your life right now. That's a little bit much. However, be okay admitting skill gaps. Not all of us know everything all of the time. I kind of have, whenever everybody knows everything, when I step into an organization, that's always an indicator that something is wrong. If everybody is like, oh yes, I know exactly where that is, but they don't necessarily talk in depth about how to achieve it or get there, that tells me that they don't feel safe in their environment admitting when they need training or when things aren't clear to everybody else. So if it takes you to be that person to use confidence, to be vulnerable and say, hey, I don't know what's going on here. Can you walk me through how we do this? I guarantee you are also probably protecting peers as well. And one of the hardest parts about vulnerability, at least for me, is it's acknowledging when you mess up. And I don't mean that's hard for me to acknowledge when I mess up. It's hard for me to just mess up. I'm a very extroverted introvert. And so when I realize that I have somehow negatively impacted somebody else's experience, I have this urge to like go and way overcorrect and try and get forgiveness and also explain like, I know where you're coming from because I experienced this too. One of the pearls that Exona dropped on you at the head of this talk was to know when to be quiet and to walk away. And while I'm over here yelling at you to take up space and be loud, that's important too. But silence can sometimes be critical. And when we're being vulnerable in terms of apologizing, or if we've overstepped our bounds, etc., resist the urge to use that extrovertedness to try and identify commonality, because the person that has been slighted or the victim in the situation won't necessarily feel like you're identifying with them by being vulnerable. They'll feel like you are trying to dominate the situation and make it about you. So practice acknowledging when we mess things up by being vulnerable and phrase those apologies very well. So I usually phrase it by acknowledging the thing that I did wrong, acknowledging how it impacted the person that it affected, and then allowing them to explain to me how they felt about it, and then promising or at least delivering on the fact that I was going to fix it in the future and that I would be cognizant of it, but always deliver on that promise as well. Lastly, on that note, I phrase it, unless you're part of a cult that we don't know about, being a martyr is a waste of time. Accurate. So if you were in the middle of an evolving incident, especially in the line of work that we all work in, cybersecurity, everything is high priority all the time, right? Like everyone has the next incident we need to move to. This log4j vulnerability thing has been super fun because it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. I'm hoping that they leave us alone for the next week. Let's just pray. But when you come in every day and you're like, oh, it's the worst. I'm so sorry. Like, this is just the worst that I've ever done. And you continue to show up and do everything for everyone. Not only is it going to be mentally damaging for you, we're going to burn you out. But it also becomes exclusionary to all of your peers and the people that report to you or with you. So acknowledge when you're approaching burnout, communicate it early and often, and help transfer some of that level of responsibility to others so that you can get things done as a team. All right. Lastly, be genuine. All right. This one's always fun too. So when I talk to people about being themselves, I usually get two reactions. When I say, be yourself, it's like, well, duh, Sarah, who else am I going to be? Like, what am I going to put on a costume and show up as the clown burglar? I don't think so. Or it's, you don't want me to be myself because I would get fired. Ha, 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 ha. Neither of those two things are true to me. And I want all of you to be yourselves in a way that is accretive to your career. And I want to give you some practical steps on how to express yourself in a workplace that helps move you along on your career path. You look at that first bullet, we are evolved bipedal predators, and you think, thank you for the history information. Why are you telling me this? I tell you this because humans are special. In the ethosphere of the world, the universe, cosmically, we are unique that we know of thus far because we haven't found any other cool critters that are sentient outside of here. But also, we're the first animal besides dinosaurs that walked around on two legs and were persistence predators, meaning we could just wait out whatever we were stalking in order to cook it and eat it. In order to be genuine, I want you to embrace that bipedal predator part of yourself and realize that you are here because you can take this the long way. Like when we talked about how this is get comfort and discomfort, that's because we're not running a short race here. We're running a long one. We're talking about your career. Plan that out. Plan out that hunt and plan it by being yourself, by embracing that bipedal predator part of yourself. And when you see others that like try and ingress on your prey, disagree with them. Be honest with it. Say, hey, this is my lane. You need to stay out of it. And if you feel uncomfortable doing that, if you feel uncomfortable taking that amount of space, tag in a peer or your manager and say, hey, I need some help guiding myself here. Being that this talk is targeted specifically towards a women's group or people that identify as women, I think we are encouraged to be confident. You say, yeah, how do I do that? That's great. Like we can be confident, we can be loud, we can be genuine. But in my performance review at the end of the year, my male identifying coworker is going to be told that they're assertive and I'm going to be told that I'm catty. So how do I translate that? I'm going to help you with that. You translate that by being yourself and acknowledging when you see that level of bias come out in your reviews, but also protect yourself by being that bipedal predator and planning your trajectory. So plan how this conversation is going to go. Come with talking points, be able to direct it, and be okay with someone disagreeing with you. That can be hard. Like I said earlier, as a extroverted introvert, I kind of want to make everyone agree with me, not because I want them to agree with me, but because I don't want us to have conflict. That sounds scary and awful. I just want everybody to get along. That being said, it takes a degree of maturity to say, let's disagree with this and move on. At Meta, we have a saying, disagree and commit. And it's if we have two equally skilled people that have very different scientific opinions on the level of impact something will have, the risk associated with it, et cetera, we just say, fine, disagree and commit. And we move on with whatever solution was initially proposed. To do that, you have to be comfortable being yourself and be genuine about your ideas and how they come. And that means sticking to your commitments and being okay not being friends with everybody, but being open to being friends with everybody. Make yourself emotionally available to people by being vulnerable, by exerting confidence. But if someone says something that's just not your flavor, if your weirds smell different and you don't think that they can ever get along, that doesn't mean that you have to be mortal enemies and like come to combat at dawn. It means that you can acknowledge each other's awesomeness in their distinct areas and then continue on being awesome on your own path. The last bullet there says, take the road that makes sense for you, regardless of how traveled. What do I mean by that? Not everybody wants to run the company. That's good. Not everybody wants to also like just answer task work all day. That's also good. Don't pattern your success based off of other people's trajectories. Your path can change along the way. It should. Mine has changed many times. I initially wanted to be an astronaut. That didn't work out so well. So I went into working for the government, thought I'd be there forever, and then ended up in the private sector. Very, very different arenas, but all of them have been accretive to me interpersonally as well as for my career. And I've ended up happier because of how I traveled that path. If you see someone else, embracing their bipedal predator in a way that is like damaging to the rest of the corporation because they just chew up their teams and spit them out, that's probably a path that's not traveled very well. Only you can determine how you're going to walk your career path. But I challenge you to do so in a way that makes others feel comfortable traveling their road the way that makes sense for them. That doesn't mean that you turn everyone into a cult of personality and make them do it the exact same way that you do. It means that we embrace our differences and we move forward together. All right. Finally, empathy. Oh, by the way, let's go back to this graphic for a second. I love this graphic. I've seen this a number of places. Usually it's describing therapy. I stole this. I'm not smart enough or good enough at art to do this by myself. It was open. I didn't really steal it. It was like an open source image. However, I love it for a few reasons. The person on the left is often who people identify themselves being, and the person on the right is often who they identify their hype rep, their person, etc. I ask you people to switch that image. Start identifying yourself as the person on the right, doing this for the other people on the left, because we are all the person on the left. That happens all the time when we get so lost in our own inner turmoil, that fear, shame storm we talked about earlier. If you want to have a huge impact in your organization, not just technically, if you want to utilize these soft skills in order to get further along in your career path, become the person on the right. Help others sort out themselves, not at the detriment of you, but to the benefit of the organization and that person. When you say be empathetic, that sounds easy. It's like a switch that you just turn on and I understand everybody else. Being empathetic genuinely is difficult. You have to be genuine and express curiosity. And if that curiosity is not genuine, it becomes clear very, very quickly. I like Xona was talking about, if I have 10 screens open and I'm over here typing, I'm like, what do you want to be when you grow up? None of my direct reports are going to think that I care about their growth and development. In order to be successful in being a leader, to be successful being an individual contributor, you have to invest in the peers around them. Take the time to build rapport with them. If you come to conflict, or even if you just notice that one of them is having a hard day, try to understand the situation as them, not just from their perspective, not just as you as them, but literally as them. Like Xona talked about at the top of the hour, non-native English speakers present a large part of our workforce. And I still challenge myself and I get called on it and I ask people to call me on it. I happen to talk a lot and fast. It's my natural cadence. And I realize that I'm not necessarily being empathetic to the people that I work with if I'm making it difficult to communicate with me. So try and really see yourself from the outside sometimes and help people unfurl how to engage with you in the best way. It's hard to be empathetic with people we don't get along with. That's the biggest challenge. But I have some of the best relationships with some of the people that I find most challenging to engage. So one of the ways that we do that, I had a previous boss that, man, we just didn't get along, like, at all. I did not see things from their perspective. They did not see things from mine. I felt like they were being inappropriate, like just rude. And so I tried to manage that communication like I had been taught by all of my mentors before: show up, smile, say, all right, let's figure out how to get this done together. And that wasn't doing anything for me. It was only until we sat down and I said, look, this is not working. I have showed up. I think we have this huge space between us. I am doing what is expected of me. I don't know. I feel like you're not doing what's expected of you because you're not trying to get along with me. You probably think about it differently. How do you think about it? And when we had that conversation, they finally acknowledged that, oh man, you think that I'm not putting any effort into this. Like, I have this whole notebook of communication strategies for how do I get along with Sarah and manage her effectively. And when we had the conversation and just got real about, hey, why do we not get along? We started realizing we have different communication methods. And when I acknowledged that I needed to put stuff for them in writing and they needed to tell me when they thought that I was acting out of my lane, things got a lot better. That ended up being the best boss I have ever had. I followed him to 2 different organizations. We got a ton of stuff done. So if a distance exists and you're finding it difficult to be empathetic and you have a dartboard somewhere that you're just tossing at, darts at somebody's image because you can't wait till they leave, reassess that situation. See if there's any hidden factors that are impacting your guys' ability to get along. Also, see if you're exerting privilege in that relationship that shouldn't be there. Are you taking up space that makes it difficult for them to be present? Are you making it difficult for them to find equity in the workload that you have presented with them, etc.? And then the last 2 bullet points, we've bootstomped enough. So I expect you all to be experts in this. There will be a test at the end, but know how to apologize well. And also, like right now, know when you need to be quiet. I will toss that to Exona after this, but we're going to bootstomp one thing. We talked about the image, be the right, not the left. When we're unfurling other people, when I try to pattern, who do I want to be 3 months, 6 months, 8 months? I think of this mythical fake coworker. We already talked about the one voice in my head, Estelle, who tells me things that are not useful about myself, and I tell her to shut up a lot. But I also have this mythical coworker that I think is fantastic and models all of these traits, and I try and be that person. I am myself. I exhibit all of the unique characteristics and the constellation of attributes that make me uniquely me. But I do it in a way that I think will help other people. So that is, when my team gets something done and they kill it, I acknowledge that it was them. I helped lead them do it, but they did it. And I make sure that that credit goes to them. I also try to acknowledge when I'm seeing warning signs in my team. Do we have a sudden change of pattern of life? Is their affect different? High, low, confidence, tears, etc.? And I pull them aside and I give them space to talk to me about it and try and make them feel safe and be there. And when I see something stupid happen, that 4th bullet's probably the most important one, speak out about nonsense. If you see something, one, that you need to go to HR on, please be loud and go to HR on it, especially if it violates a law or harassment policy, etc. But if you just see some other nonsense that's not protected, i.e. a more senior person or junior person, like, oh, we don't need your opinion here, please stop that. Say, I would like to have your opinion. Let's bring it forward. Be the hype rep that you wish that you had. And with that, let's sit to Exona to talk about how we use those pillars to build trust and relationships.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, so everything we have talked about so far leads to this, which is building trust in relationships. You're not very likely to go very far alone. You need to spend time and be dedicated and really genuinely want to build these trustworthy and good relationships with your coworkers. Everything Sarah talked about, being vulnerable, and genuine, communicating well, all of these things will help you get there to a place. And why is this important? It's kind of multiple reasons in a work setting. Truth is, whether we like it or not, opportunities are more likely to come your way if you have spent time doing all those things, practicing all of these soft skills, this trust in these relationships, because people will be more likely to reach out to you, to ask you for your opinion in a project, or to ask your opinion, or to get involved, and they could use your expertise and your technical skills, but they know that you will able to also bring to the table your communication skills and being, genuine, and all the things we've talked about. Why that is helpful for your career is ultimately it will lead to growth. So more trust means more responsibility, and with more responsibility there is always growth, because you will be doing things that you haven't done before. You will be asked. I personally know this firsthand, because oftentimes I'm asked to jump into things that actually I'm not very comfortable with, like something that I haven't done before, something that is not really my strength. But if someone, my manager or someone higher than me, is asking me, or a partner team is asking me, they must think that I actually am capable of this, and therefore I will spend the time to do the research, learning, everything that I need to do to be able to complete that task, or investigate that incident, or whatever it may be, and therefore that will help me grow in my career. Overall, it will lead to a better work environment. Like we mentioned before, it just like crucial in a work environment. If you're in a place where you're welcomed, you have amazing relationships with coworkers, and like Sarah talked about, there's not really a place where everything is unicorns and magical, and there will be times when you will work with people you don't really enjoy, but you will have all these skills and have ways to know how to overcome that in more tactical way, so that you can have these more learning opportunities and just general growth. Don't forget to be open and proactive. You should go out there. Like if you are interested in a cross-functional team and what they do, but it doesn't really tie to a project, you should still like book a 30-minute, go talk to someone, express interest. There probably will be some way to work with them together. So there is always more for you out of something by expressing interest, or being proactive about providing help, or just as a resource for whatever it may be that you work. In general, one thing that I can't talk about enough is providing constructive feedback, and this is something we do at Meta all the time, which has helped me build so many good relationships at work. Oftentimes I contemplate and think, maybe should I communicate this to their manager, or because it can be a little bit uncomfortable when you spot something, or if someone is going to tell me directly that I could be doing something better. But so often that means that that person actually cares about me and my success, and that I do well. So if they're gonna tell me that I could improve in I don't know, communicating, and provide me with resources, or say if you want to write up this that you have done, and I will review it for you, or I can help you in any way that I can, that will just lead to a better relationship with them. So I try to practice very often, like being very direct and communicating with people about what I think they could be doing better, and always ask proactively for constructive feedback, because most often than not, it will lead to a better relationship, even though people are in this mentality that they're creating enemies and potentially, strain their relationship with people without being all, always everything is nice with you, you are amazing. So that actually shows care. And in general, just be open and communicate. Like it's so funny to see how very, very often we're all in the same boat. Like I've talked to people that have had 20 years of experience, people that have 1 year of experience, and so often you express something where you feel insecure or imposter syndrome, and everyone's like, me too, like we're in this together. And that only helps like build that relationship. So with that, we can jump to Q&A.
Oh, Zona, that's such a good point about imposter syndrome. Literally everyone I've ever worked with at some point has expressed like, I don't belong here, and I don't think I'm the right person for this job, and what do I do? And I spend a lot of my time talking people off of cliffs, because you wouldn't be there if you weren't the right person. Your HR team has spent the right time finding the right people there. And that's a good turnover to actually our first question, which is, this is all great once you're on the job, but how can this be leveraged to get into the industry from a non-tech background? Great question. You want to take a hit at it first, Exona?
Sure. I think actually for me, it ties in really well. I studied computer science and didn't have anything to do with security. Like I knew very, very basic things in college, and got to Meta through an ambassador internship, which was focused on people that don't really have like, a lot of background or knowledge in security, but are very interested and can exhibit, quick learning abilities. And what helped me the most was these soft skills, being able to communicate to the recruiters and being able to show genuine interest and like, what am I doing outside of my schoolwork and curriculum to stay, on top of what's happening, or, like, what can I offer to the table? So for me, I think in general, all of these things we talked about, like it's very difficult, but just as it applies in the actual workforce, building these trusts and relationships, it's the same outside when you're still, networking and meeting recruiters and meeting people at, speaking events or conferences.
Yeah, that's such a good point. We talk a lot about the importance of Facebook is a social graph. And we talk a lot about the importance isn't necessarily the nodes, it's the edges. It's the relationships that you build with people. I'm uniquely positioned to answer this question because I did not come from a tech background. I am a highly technical person now, but when I started my career, I think I told you I wanted to be an astronaut. That didn't go super far. But my degree was initially in physics and international affairs. And I worked in the intelligence industry, and we had very little to do with tech. I had a lot to do with trying to find bad guys in the real world under bridges and in weird hotels, etc. And very rapidly, we realized that that was devolving into a technical environment and not necessarily under bridges anymore. So I realized that I had to get smart on that. I did that by leveraging my graph effectively, building edges with people. And I don't have, I'm now getting an advanced degree that is in cybersecurity and computer science. But my other advanced degree is not related to that at all. It's about like how we protect nuclear weapons, which is not really applicable at Facebook, thankfully, yet. But how do you leverage that to get in is like use those edges. Look at LinkedIn, start crawling it. Like if you don't have a job right now, your job is to find a job. That's how I advised my husband when he found himself out of work, how I advised myself when I was looking for a new job. Start identifying people, targeting them that can get you into it, and shoot your shot. If you see people like me or Exona on LinkedIn, message us, ask us how we got here. You might not get a reply from everyone, but I try to reach back, especially to people that are in my professional organizations, and pull them forward. I feel a holy moral responsibility to ensure that there is more diverse representation in tech spaces. I want to get rid of bro culture. I try to actively engage with my female, people of color, and other identifying groups that are minorities and may not have representation in this space. Utilize that graph. Find your champions, develop your technical skills as they go, and get a learning plan in place with a mentor that can help you achieve that. All right, we have some more questions I want to get to. I have a background in IT and have finished a master's in cybersecurity recently. Good for you. I'm looking for an entry-level job in cybersecurity, but all entry-level jobs seem to need experience in the field, and that's the truth. Also, internships want you to be a current student, and I've already graduated. What do I do to set my foot in the cybersecurity industry? I'm very confused. Well, I'm sorry to hear you're feeling confused, but you're in the right space. Thank you for asking questions and leaning in. It's always the truth that like there's never an entry-level job in cybersecurity, which I think is also not necessarily true. For example, some of the big sponsors of WeSys are actually hiring entry-level SOC jobs right now. I know at least 3 of them are. Look on LinkedIn and target the words for entry-level cybersecurity. Also ping people in your social graph that are looking for it. Take classes, hack the box, open source stuff. Look at OISIS or open source intelligence. Target your security area that you're interested in. Get a little deeper on it. Demonstrate that competence on your LinkedIn profile, on your resume. Talk about how you're getting into it. And if internships only want you to be in school, then sign up for a class and call it school. I mean, get your foot in the door somehow. I'm not telling you to lie about it. I'm telling you to leverage your skills in order to get yourself in the door and then demonstrate competence against it. Exona, let's have you take the next question. In an all-guy environment in security, I'm an extreme extrovert. How do I help my teammates who are introverted feel comfortable around me? I do tone it down, but I still feel the team is overwhelmed by me.
This is such a good question. I think one thing I would do is schedule one-on-ones with these people that you feel are more introverted, and just talk to them, give them the chance, even if it's like social and it's not really work related, give them the chance to talk to you, listen, take your time to be attentive. And sometimes in, team meetings, in general, there is a tendency to maybe call out people who never speak. And that can be uncomfortable, but it can, motivate people to actually say something. But for me in the past, it's really worked really well to have one-on-ones and then ask people to like, oh, you should share more about this that you're working on in a team meeting, or, a presentation or something, to like get yourself out there and show, what you're doing.
That's a really good point. I also think that being super extroverted sometimes is a defense mechanism. We feel the need to feel space as opposed to experience uncomfortable silence. I challenge you to experience that uncomfortable silence a little bit and give the introverted person the space and time to fill it. They just may need more of a ramp up gate than you do to fill that space, and see if they're comfortable doing that. And if you can help champion them owning their own projects, like Ixona said, find out in one-on-ones if they'd like you to help them bring it up in team meetings. So instead of like, does anyone have any questions? When it comes up, be like, oh, I heard that, Jen would want to say something right now. Jen was working on this project. Jen, could you tell us a little bit about it? And help prompt them if that's something they're comfortable with. A lot of introverted people may not enjoy that. So ask them about their comms preference. And there's no need to feel weird about it. Just be direct. How do you best engage with you? That kind of thing. That being said, it is 2:01. We are at time. Again, Ixona and I thank you from the bottom of our hearts for making the time to be present with us here today. We really appreciate you, the active engagement with questions. And thank you, Lisa's, for hosting us. If you'd like to tag up with us, we're available on LinkedIn. If you have specific questions, you can respond to the post that you found this on, and hopefully we'll try and get back to you. Enjoy your Thursdays, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.